Hey there, everybody, and welcome back. For those of you that are interested in creating your own application, but you don't know how to code and you don't really want to spend any money on it, you've come to the right place. By the end of this video series, so it's going to be a playlist I'm setting up, you will see how to create your own mobile application, both for Android and iOS, and it'll actually work as a web-based app as well. It'll have a sign up and sign in page, and then an actual information sharing piece that works across multiple devices, and essentially will act as information sharing in a similar way to like how social media or forums would work. So stay tuned. I'm also actually going to show you a quick tutorial in a little bit of the application that I'm going to be helping you build. I'm going to download this straight from Google Play and run it on my phone just to show you what it looks like. But for those of you that may be a little skeptical about the pricing, just to prove it to you, we're using this platform called AppGyver. And you'll see on their pricing page here, it shows that Composer Pro is free for life for those indie developers and organizations with less than 10 million in revenue or funding. And we're going to be using the free tier of Firebase for the backend storage and user authentication. That is completely free as well. The only costs you will incur is if you decide to publish to Google, so basically to the Google Play Store or to the Apple App Store. Both have a mandatory fee that is completely unavoidable. It is $25 one time, at least at the time of filming this video, for the Google Play Store, and then about $99 annually for the Apple App Store. Again, those are their fees, no way around it. So before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the channel for new content. Now, as a little bit of a trailer, I'm going to go ahead and jump onto my phone. I'm going to walk you all through this application from install to basic use, and then we'll jump into making the page. So let's go on over.
All right, everybody, so I'm over here on my Galaxy S20, and this is the Google Play Store. So if you type in Coffee Canine at the top, you'll see this second one here. Both of these apps are technically mine. The first one I made with AppGyver, I'll put a link below just to give you an overview of that platform. However, it is not free. And then this one is my publisher account for this specific application. You'll see I have my screenshots, general overview. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install this application. You'll see it's about 56 to 57 megabytes, so it's not terribly large. And the beauty of the AppGyver platform is we're going to be using a database in the backend, which is also free. And essentially, we're going to be using GET and POST requests to store the information elsewhere to reduce the overall size of the app, because there is a maximum storage limit. So we're going to go ahead and wait on this app to install. And I just wanted to show you what it's like installing this from the App Store, just so you can actually verify that I have actually posted this. I know a lot of people are skeptical about free services. AppGyver is honestly 1 in a million that they even let you do this. So as we're waiting for this to install, we're going to jump back over in just a second to the AppGyver platform. I'm going to break this video into a couple different sections. You should be able to make a similar app to this between 2 and 5 hours, depending on how quick you are to pick up on this stuff. So we're going to click on open. You'll see my splash screen right there. And then here is my just kind of like general picture up at the top. And then you'll type in your email and password. And then you'll see you have a privacy policy here, terms and conditions here, the create new account button, which will tell you you need your email. So what we're going to do is we're just going to type in my sample account. And then password, I believe, is just testing. And you click sign in. And here's your home page. Obviously, we could put some content here. You have this page for add coffee. So the idea is you could type in all this information, and when you add the post right here, then it'll show up in these sections over here. So the idea is if you decided, you know what, I really loved this light roast from Grounds and Hounds, you can click it. It'll take you to this page, which has this picture here and the details. So the company description, roast, where you got it, and then when it was added. And then you could update the post by typing in right here. And then we have the forums tab, which is just kind of a general forum. So if you click on best coffee brand, here's the first post. So you would click it and it'll basically just say Grounds and Hounds posted by Coffee Lover on this date. You could reorganize it. I'm not sure if this exact structure makes the most sense, but that's kind of the general idea. And then you have a cafes tab. So you'll see different coffee cafes. So this is a cafe in Charlotte, for example. You click it, it'll bring up the post with all the details. So you could actually type in and fill out this form, and then it'll appear in the post below. So this is just kind of a general idea. Now, if you don't want your app to look the exact same, you can change every element of this. So you are not forced in any way. You have to be creative. This is about coffee. You could make this about anything that you want. And again, we can customize it as we go. So let's go ahead and jump back in and get this login page started, and then we'll build out the app from there.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started building this out. So we are going to go ahead and jump in. First thing is going to appgyver.com, clicking on sign up. When you do this, it's going to take you to their sign up page. For me, if I click it, I'm just logging in. So when you go to their sign up page, it's a very basic form, basically your email, password, maybe a couple extra questions, the I'm not a robot reCAPTCHA, and then it will sign you in. It'll ask you a couple of questions about what are you actually using this for to kind of help customize that interface or layout and create everything. Then your account's good to go. Shouldn't take you more than between 5 and 15 minutes to sign up. Then we're going to head on over to firebase.com. You're going to sign up with your Google account, so just basically create a Google account if you don't already have one, and then go to Firebase, so console.firebase.google.com, and then you'll land in this dashboard. All you need to do is click on Add Project. You'll name your project and go through the 3 steps. If you want, you can set up Google Analytics. I did for mine. The free analytics never hurts. And then you'll see a little tile right here for your project. So we'll click on this to get this pulled up. Now my recommendation for those of you that are following along is to have one tab with this page right here. And then this tab here is going to be where you're logging in. So I'll close this because I already have AppGyver pulled up. This is what your home screen looks like when you've logged in for the first time. So we have these 2 tabs for quick access. We're going to click Create New. And while this is loading, I'm going to go over here. This looks really ominous, but that's essentially what we're going to get into in a little bit. So don't worry about it if it looks a little hectic. I'm going to have this page pulled up, which is my login screen. So this logic page we'll go into in just a second. But basically, I'm going to bounce back and forth between the actual application in AppGyver and what you have, so you can see kind of how you're progressing and what it should look like. So for now, we're just going to click on Choose Template, and we will say for the YouTube is the project name. This is you see it says New App. This is its name. So on your home screen, the text underneath the icon, that's what this is going to be. So make sure you name it whatever it is you want users to see. Also bearing in mind, if it's too long, it will either get cut off or everything will look kind of squished together. Now it is going to drop us into this home page here. So let me go ahead and walk you through all of the components super quickly. I highly recommend you don't skip ahead here. You're going to end up needing most of what I'm about to show you. First is top left. Empty page is your default page that you just created. Ignore global canvas. That's something that's created that you can't really edit or delete. You don't need to worry about it. Now, as you're creating new pages, they'll populate here, and you can just click on a different page to open up that page. Next up is your launch button. This has your preview, which the app preview portal. I'll click on right now. And I want to show you all a really cool trick. So when you click on open, because this is your project, you will see this is what your page looks like. So this is going to be edits almost, it's either real time or close to real time. So if we go back here and we see this is the page. Now you may be wondering why it looks so big. Well, this is the web preview. If you want, AppGyver has an app you can download to do the preview on your phone and do those edits in real time. Or you can right click here, and this will look a little odd if you don't know coding, and you really don't need to. This is the developer tool by Google, so it's built into Chrome. When you right click and click inspect, ignore everything on the right. This will look really ominous and you don't need to know any of it. What I'm trying to show you is if you go up here and you click on this button, and you make sure that it's selected, then you'll see right here, you can click on, if it's responsive by default, you can choose any screen layout you want to see. So if we were to click on iPhone X, this is what it's going to look like, that website or any web page. is going to look like on that device type, and you can interact with it basically from that actual page. So a little tool for you all if that's something you're interested in. Now let's go back here. So the last thing is distribute is the build services where you're actually going to create and generate the app file to publish to the app stores. The theme I don't really cover in this series just because I have zero artistic ability whatsoever, and honestly this is just for those of you who really want to make the app look professional. Navigation is where you have your option for the navigation header bar, which is a bar across the top that says the name of the page. It is basically an option for you to enable or disable in the event that you want to have your own kind of custom header. And then you have a navigation menu enabled where you can choose to add all of your pages, which is like a quick access menu at the bottom of the screen. Your data tab is for data resources, which we'll cover later on. Auth is authentication, which we'll cover shortly. And community is one thing I highly recommend you get involved with. It's their community resources where you can ask questions and interact with other users. In the top right, this exit app will become a save button anytime you make a change. Now, over here, you have components. So you have anything you can drag and drop. Code's automatically generated, so you don't even have to worry about the coding piece. And once the component's here, this is what I'm going to call the UI, so the user interface. You'll see it visually represented, and you can edit it over here on the right. So you have the properties and the style. Style is more so dimensions, position, text formatting. Properties is more of like the properties of that component. And then you'll notice you have your page layout. So you can interact with your page here as well. So you can drag and drop if you don't want to use the interface over here, and you can remove items just like you would normally. And then last two things, first is logic. So if you click on an item, you'll see the logic behind it. So an example of how this would work is if you wanted to add a button, you can drag and drop. And then when this button is selected, you could say, I want this button to open a page. So you choose a function, and you'll collect this, or you'll connect this little bubble called a node to the other node. And then here you would select it to edit the properties, and from here select the page you wanted to open. And that's all there is to it. I know that's super quick, but we're going to do this in more detail shortly. And the last thing I covered, because I love the AppGyver platform and I would never want to take away from their tutorials and training, this bar on the bottom checks things off as you're doing them. And it has video tutorials walking you through each element of AppGyver and how to use this and kind of learn the basics. So I would highly recommend going through all this. It does not take very long, and it's a great resource. And again, they check off as you actually do them. So let's go ahead and start building out this login screen. So for this login, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce between the actual application and the application that we're building. So first, we're going to check and see what variables do we need. So for this page, we're going to click the slider, which is the one component I didn't really cover earlier, and we're going to go to variables. So you'll see you have different variable options. App variables are basically for the whole app, so you can read them from any page in the app. A page variable is really something you just need on that page. So we're going to edit these in a second, but basically on a login page, you need to have the page variables. So when someone enters in email and password, you can actually use that information to do something with it. You have page parameters, which are basically your read-only text variables that allow you to open flow functions. So the idea is you can pass the ID of a list item to a details page. So imagine a forum post. You post in the forum and you'll have the name and then a description. If you click it, it'll open a page with more detail. That's what we're going to be using this for. You have data variables. This is how I'm storing a URL to an image. That way I can change it outside of the application and not have to update every single time, or at least update the application. And then translation variables we will not be using for this series. So the first three things we're going to need are this API key, the ID token, and refresh token. You can ignore the others for now. So in your application, click on variables, so move the slider, and then go to app variables, add app variable. First thing is going to be API with a capital K-E-Y, so API key. And then we need to save the actual API key. So let's jump over to Firebase, and we're going to click on Settings, Project Settings, and your API key is here. The 20-second rundown of how this works, you have a URL like this URL up here, and then this is not how it's going to work for this instance, but hypothetically, you would save something like your API key as your app variable, and then what we're going to tell the app to do is automatically add in the API key. So it's going to basically look like this URL plus this API key, and then it connects it so that it looks like this and publishes information here. And then this way, we can use different URLs, so this base URL, for different scenarios and making sure that the API key is added in. So you may have one URL for your login information, one URL for publishing data for a specific purpose. So that'll kind of be how we're going to use it. So what you do is go ahead and highlight this text here, and then right-click and click copy. You can see that I'm kind of struggling with this. So right-click, copy, or Control-C, Command-C. And then we'll go back over here, and in API key, we're going to keep the value type to text, but you can change it if you want. I wouldn't for this. And then in initial value, we're just going to paste it in and click Save. Now you'll notice we need two more. So again, ID token and refresh token. So let's go ahead and add app variable. And that's going to be ID token. And you don't need to make any changes. And we're going to put in refresh token. And token is capitalized in both instances. And we'll see why in the Firebase documents in a little bit. And we're just going to click Save because those are the only two things that we really need for now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to jump on over to our login page, or actually start off with enabling login. So we're going to click on Auth, which stands for authentication, and we're going to click Enable Authentication. Now I would recommend you go with Google Firebase if you want to actually learn that. That's a separate tutorial. The app I made predated this, so this wasn't something that I used. But we're going to click on Direct Third-Party Authentication. Also, if you're using something other than Firebase, this will help you to understand it as well. So we're going to click this and click OK. And this automatically creates your login page with a couple of elements for you. We're just going to click Empty Page up here, and we're going to go ahead and click on Login. So this is our login page. We can start by clicking AppGyver logo and removing it. And we can drop in our own image, which we can edit a little bit later. But this will just be our placeholder. We'll click Save to save any changes. And now we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're basically recreating this login page that I have here. So first and foremost, we're going to change the first option. So we need to look at our variables. What was just created? So you see page variables. You have credentials, password, and username. We're just going to change the text on username real quick to be email, which changes the name of this credential to email. And you'll just click Save. And basically these are variables that we're storing data to. So for username, you'll see we can edit the properties over here. We'll put it or set it to email. You'll see the text up here changes. The value we're going to change because username is no longer a variable. We changed it to email. So you'll see the credentials, swap it out for email. And then right here, we'll put enter your email address and click Save. So this has a default preview here, and we're going to do the same for password. The label's okay. The value, if you wanted to reselect it, which you don't have to, but you would just click password. And then set preview value, enter password here. And you can change this text to be whatever you want. It's just a preview. Click Save. And we'll click Save because we did make a change to the app. And then next up, we're going to add in the text, don't have an account, create or sign up here, or whatever it is you want it to say. So drag over a paragraph real quick. And we're going to change the content. So I'm going to hit Control A and just delete it all. And then I'm going to type in here, don't have an account, click here to sign up with an exclamation point. Now, if you want, you can underline it or bold it or whatever you want it to look like to make it look like a link. And then we'll click Style, and in Typography, we're going to do a center alignment just to make it kind of match up a little better. So we have the basics of our page created. We'll click Save. And now we're going to click on this, click here to sign up. And we're going to click on Show Logic, and we're going to expand this and make it a little bigger. And what we're going to do now is we're going to recreate the logic that we saw not too long ago. So we're going to expand this and expand it again. This looks complicated. It is not as bad as it looks. I'm going to walk you through it, and then we're going to build it together. So first is an if condition, basically making sure there's a valid email, then making sure there's a valid password. If at any point either are invalid, you'll get a little notification, this toast dialog. It's not breakfast food, believe it or not. This is an actual dialog that opens up that says email or password required. If both are valid, then we're going to be doing this data sign up, which is a post to the URL I was showing you earlier. So it's a URL and then our app variable API key, and it's posting data to it. Then, if something goes wrong, a dialog appears. If not, it sends a verification email, sets items to storage. That's those ID and refresh tokens that we'll need later. And then that's really all there is to it. So we'll send them a little verification dialog saying verification email sent. Check your email to sign up. This is not best practice, in my opinion, for these three to be connected to this, because this basically means you're going to get the same dialog whether this works or doesn't. I just did this for honestly no reason, but this way they're always going to get the same exact dialog. So if someone typed in a weird, like an incorrect email address, they're still going to get the same email or same email notification. Now let's go ahead and recreate all of this over here. So we have our market here. We're going to add in the different components. So first thing we're going to add is going to be our if condition. So we need one if condition here, one if condition here, and then we're going to need two different dialogues. So we have toast dialog 1 and toast dialog 2. So we will make this look basically exactly like the other ones. So I'm going to do these side by side. So we have our if conditions and then our toast dialogues. So what's next? Now we need a data and data. So this is a function we actually have to download from the market. So click on installed, click on flow function market. Anytime I'm working with something you don't see, you may need to actually download it from the market. So you have the option to go in here. You could type in data or just HTTP. We're looking for HTTP request. Click install. And we're going to drag one over and drag another one because we need two. So we'll see data and data. Now we're going to need two more toast dialogues. So we'll go over here and do a toast dialog down here and a toast dialog over here. And then we're going to need two set items to storage and one set app variable. So just to make sure we're following this exactly as it is, the first data request and the second one's actually going to run when several other things are happening at the same time, which isn't an issue. So let's go ahead. We're going to look for set app variable. And then set item to storage, we actually need to download from the function market. So set item, and you'll see set item to storage. We'll just click install, and then we'll drag this over, and we'll drag one more over. And if you need them in the same order, it is the storage, then variable. So we will put this one down here. Now let's go ahead and connect everything. So we'll connect this to this, and then if this if condition, which is the email, is correct, we will go to the next one. If it's not, so basically if it's validated, the top one occurs. If it's not, then we get the dialog. And then with this one, if it is validated, we're going to go all the way down here to the data request. And if it isn't validated, the second node will just connect to this little toast dialog. Now, if the data request happens or basically runs, then we're going to connect to these four items in the middle. And then if not, we're going to connect to the toast dialog. So if you need to bulk select, you can actually do this highlight action, and then you can move them up. And we're going to connect 4 things to the same node, which is not a problem. Basically just saying we want to run 4 things at the same time. And if this doesn't run correctly, we want this dialog. And then I connected all of the nodes to this dialog. Again, probably not best practice, but basically if it runs correctly, give them a dialog. If it doesn't, I'm not going to have a second dialog, so you can actually run with this as it is. We're going to click save because no one ever wants to lose their progress. Now what I'm going to do to make things a little easier, because you've already saved your API key, I'm going to go ahead and walk through how to do things in the actual application here that's already been built. So we're just going to walk through what I've already done. All right, so in this application, again, this is the actual app itself. We're going to walk through the logic. So again, I'm on create new account, and I'm going to expand this all the way and walk you through all the individual pieces. If you skipped ahead at all, earlier we made a couple different variables, so you need to rewind and watch it all the way through. Otherwise, some of this will not work. So we're going to click on the first if condition. And over here, you'll see that we can click on this piece. Now you notice this lightning bolt. This is essentially what this is bound to. So we're binding it to a formula. And then you'll click on formula, and here's where we're just typing it in. So I'm going to space over. You don't need to type this twice. This is all you need. I'm just going to type it with you. So we're going to type in is_email, open parentheses, and then you're going to type in page. You can stop here and look at the options that appear. You'll notice that page vars stands for page variables, credentials, email. That was one of those default options we changed earlier. So the cool thing, if you double click it, it automatically populates, and we'll just close the parentheses. So if we delete this, you'll have that typed in here, and click save. What this does is this says, is this a valid email? When you click save, your first if condition is typed up. If it's not a valid email, that's where this line here comes into play. But if it is, we connect to this. And by the way, if these highlight orange, that just means I clicked on them just to help to show the visual representation. So next if condition, we're going to go over here and click this button here. Again, if it's not a lightning bolt, doesn't matter. We're defining that here. And then we'll click on formula. And here, this one may look a little bit more complicated. I'll type it up with you in all caps. It's not, open parentheses, is_empty. And then open parentheses, and then you can type in page, and then it's going to be pagevars.credentials. So you'll notice that's the next one, as you probably guessed. Double click here, and double parentheses to close. Y2, you'll notice one open one here, and then there's another open one here. This is basically just validating that the password field's not going to be empty. We'll click save, and then you'll have your dialog here and your dialog here. So in the first one, we're just going to type over here email required, and in the second one, we're going to type in password required. And then you're going to connect to the data sign-up flow. So in this data sign-up flow, you have a couple things we're entering in separately. So what we're going to do first and foremost is we have to get our URL. So we're going to jump on over here, and we are going to basically look at our Firebase docs. Now while that page loads, this Udemy course right here, it is not one I created. It is not one I'm paid to endorse in any way, but it is a great way to learn more about the Firebase authentication and connecting with AppGyver. As you can see, it's an inexpensive course. It's 6.5 hours. This individual has some great content. Again, I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not endorsed by them or anything. I just think that this is a really great course. But let's go ahead and jump back in. So this Firebase docs, this is where you're going to get URLs, more details on API, and really everything there is to offer. So if we see we need the sign-up key, so essentially what we're going to need to do is we need to find the document that is relevant or refers to all of the authentication details, because we need that URL. So what we can type in is going to be identity toolkit, no spaces. And this is just essentially a keyword on that page. Just hit enter. And then you'll see the first link is Firebase Auth REST API. So what we're going to do is look on the page for the text that I have here, and I'll kind of walk through it. So we're basically looking for this. And you don't need that typed in to search for this. I'm just doing this as a shortcut. So here we are. You'll see sign up with email/password, so you should be able to search for that as well. You'll see this is a post method, application/JSON. Here is your endpoint. Now, here's how this works. You're going to copy this piece right here without the API key in brackets. If you remember earlier when I was typing in the address bar, how I said we're going to type in something like this, then a plus, and then the API key, that's what we're going to be setting up shortly. Now you'll notice the body payload is something that we need, so email, password, and return secure token. So that'll make sense in a second. So we're going to go over here, and in double quotes, we are going to paste in that URL that we just copied. So you're pasting it in right here, in double quotes again. And then outside of the double quotes, you're going to put in a single space, a plus sign, a single space, and then you're going to type out this. So if you remember correctly, you just type in app, and you'll see appvars.api key. You can just double click there, and that actually auto inserts that variable. So this is the API key variable we added earlier. It stores your API key and basically creates the URL for you. And then you just click on save. So the URL is set. Next up, in HTTP, change it to post. And then we need to make sure that the request body is updated. So you'll click here, and if yours does not have, or if yours has a different symbol, click here and click formula. And here's where we're adding in the request body. So if you remember earlier, we have these three options in the payload. So we need to make sure those are added here. So you can follow along with me and type this out. It's a curly bracket open and a curly bracket that's closing. And that's how essentially a typical JSON file or format would look. So open curly bracket, type out the word email, semicolon, space, and then your pagevars.credentials.email, which is what the user enters, comma, space, and then password, semicolon, space, pagevars credentials password, and then comma, space, and then return secure token, semicolon, space, and that value is just true, and then close the curly brackets. And then you'll click save down here, and then that's basically sending the data over to Firebase as a JSON type, so make sure that's selected. So next up, we have this toast dialog down here, and you can actually just click on whatever the icon is here and choose output value of another node and choose whether you want to return the information from the receive or like the receive event or sign up, which is basically just saying if this doesn't work, return something to the user and let them know what. Next up, we are going to go to data, so the second option, and we are actually copying over something similar but not the same. So you're going to notice this is verification email. So let's go back over to the Firebase docs and hit Control F, and we're going to type in the text verification email. Now you'll notice when we scroll down, you have something similar to what we looked at before, but down here you'll see the body payload looks a little different. Now we have an ID token. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this URL just like we did before. So we're going to highlight everything to the left of the API key in brackets. So it's going to have this send OOB code question mark. You'll notice mine has the same, so you'll paste it in between the double quotes, and then space plus space, and then your app variables.api key, which again is creating that, basically that URL to essentially say, hey, Firebase, send an authentication email. The HTTP method is post again, and then no headers need to be selected. JSON is the request body type, and then in the request type, we are going to set it up just like we did in a way earlier. So it's going to be an open bracket, request type, and then the T is capital, semicolon space, in quotes, verify email in all caps with an underscore in between, and then comma space, ID token with the T capitalized, semicolon space, outputs, bracket in double quotes, sign up with a capital S, close bracket, dot res body, which is response body, and then in brackets, ID token with a capital T, and this is with single quotes. And then you're going to close the bracket and then close the curly bracket. So type this out exactly as it is essentially spelled, and then you'll click save. So you have your request body and everything for this second verification email, so the second data option. Toast dialog is just going to be verification email sent. Please click the link in your email to verify your account. Now, last thing to do, and this is actually from this Udemy course, this is going to help you with authentication further down the road, setting items to storage and essentially grabbing info that's relevant to the user at sign up, because we need that stuff later. When a user is signed in, the app needs to know who they are and what they're doing and where stuff goes in relation to them. So we'll click on the first storage option, and we're going to put up here in the item key, we're just going to call it ID token. You may be wondering where I'm getting this text. If you go back into Firebase, you'll see over here, this is part of the payload that they're requesting. So let's go ahead and we're going to put ID token here. And then you'll see in advanced, if you want, you can change the name for this. We don't need to do that now. Data to store, we're going to click this button, choose a formula. And in here, we're going to store the text outputs, bracket, double quotes with the word sign up with a capital S, close the bracket, dot res body with a capital B, again, response body here, and then bracket, single quote, ID token, capital T, single quote, bracket. So you're just going to type that out, click save, and then you'll have that typed up. Now we're going to go over to storage. We're going to put refresh token with a capital T, data to store, click on this, choose formula, and then here we're going to choose outputs, bracket, double quotes, sign up with a capital S, double quote, bracket, dot res body with a capital B, bracket, single quote, refresh token with a capital T, single quote, brackets. So I'm only reading this out in case you can't really see everything too well, and then you'll just click save when you're done. And again, no other changes here. And then variable. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select this option and choose app variable. If you see an X, don't worry about it. And we're going to save the ID token. Click save. And assigned value, you can type this out. If you see an error, don't worry about it. So we're going to type in outputs, in brackets and double quotes, the word sign up with a capital S, dot res body with a capital B, in brackets again, and single quote, ID token with a capital T. Click save. Make sure that this toast request or this toast dialog and this toast dialog have text, and that's all there is to it. So you just set up your create account flow. Now, if you want to test it, you can go up here and click launch and then open app preview portal and try to create an account. It'll automatically log you in when you do. And the cool part about Firebase is if you go over here, you will see you have this sign up page set up. So when you go into authentication, from here you will see a user will populate every time a user signs up and creates an account. Their information will appear here. Now, next up, what we're going to need to do is go ahead and set up the sign in flow. So for that, I will see you all in the next video. I feel like I've spent enough time talking on this one, so play around with it a little bit. If it doesn't work, rewind back, make sure you typed everything out. All of this is case sensitive, so follow it all, and then I'll see you in the next video for the sign in page, or the sign in button.